We are ready to talk about directions for review and preview 3.2.1. For question 94, we've got a frog that's sitting at -2, and part A describes some movements in both directions. Based on what's being described, they want you to write an expression that describes the situation that's happening. Keep this in mind. You have to remember he starts at -2. So the very first part of my expression needs to be -2. If it is a hop to the right, it's something we are adding. If it's a hop to the left, it's something we have to show being subtracted. So again, part A is just an expression that shows me where he starts, what happens each time. Then part B is where we're going to find the value of that expression. Part B asks, where does he land? So after all of these hops back and forth, where is he going to land on the number line? And part C, what's the opposite of that? Basically, they're asking you to take your answer to part B and tell me what the opposite is. So what number is on the opposite side, the same distance away from 0? For question 95, it says to draw and label a set of axes on your paper, plot and label the following points. If I'm going to draw some axes, I have to have a vertical axis labeled Y, a horizontal axis labeled X. To accomplish what we need to in this question, you should be okay with numbering to 5 on both. And when it talks about putting them in the right place and labeling them, I can just give you an example. If it says I'm supposed to plot and label 2, 2, I'm going to start, here's 0. 2 to the right, 2 up, here's where it goes. And that's what I can do to label it. I'm telling both the X value and the Y value if I'm doing it that way. For question 96, it asks me to rewrite each product below using the distributive property. So if we start off at the beginning, these spaces here inside the parentheses are where I have to decompose or break down those factors into their place values. The next spaces that we see adding together are going to be where we include our partial products. So what are the values I get when I distribute this 18? What are these values I get when I distribute the 6? I have to take 6 times everything inside. And then back here at the end, behind the equal sign would be what do we get for our final answer? What's the grand total? For question 97, we've got some fractions that we are either adding or subtracting. So by now, we should be getting a little bit faster, getting into good habits here. You have to copy the problem correctly first. Make sure you have the correct operation copied and the correct fractions. Once you have it copied, show me the giant ones that you're going to use to get your common denominators. So off to the side of those fractions, if you're going to multiply by 3/3, show me times 3/3 or times 6/6. Whatever numbers you're using, I want to be able to see. Once you have your fractions with the same denominator, the next step would be to either add or subtract the numerators, just the numerators. Keep the same denominator, and again, make sure, is my answer in simplest form? If it is, then I'm good. If it's not, make sure you put it in simplest form before you say, yep, here's my answer, I'm done. On question 98, it's talking about a mixture of ryegrass and bluegrass. And it tells us that 40% of the mixture is ryegrass, and then they ask us for a ratio of ryegrass to bluegrass. So if 40% of the mixture is ryegrass, start by figuring out what percent then would have to be bluegrass. So if 40 is ryegrass, what has to be bluegrass? And if our job is to make a ratio, I can start with 40 to whatever this number is. But just make sure you get them down to simplest form. So what can both of these be divided by? I want the simplest version of that ratio for your answer.